Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States, had decided to spend her afternoon shopping. It wasn't for herself, but for a young girl she had recently mentored through her foundation. The girl had achieved something remarkable, gaining acceptance into a prestigious college, and Michelle wanted to surprise her with a special gift, a designer dress for her upcoming gala. The boutique Michelle chose was renowned for its exclusivity and impeccable fashion. Known to cater to celebrities, socialites, and the city's elite, the boutique had an air of superiority that was hard to ignore. But Michelle was no stranger to such environments. She had walked the halls of power, shared stages with world leaders, and been a beacon of inspiration for millions. Yet, today, she walked in as any other customer, carrying a small sense of nostalgia for the days before fame. As she stepped inside, the soft chime of the doorbell barely registered to the boutique staff. The store's opulent interior, with its shimmering chandeliers, pristine marble floors, and racks of designer clothes, contrasted starkly with the cold reception Michelle received. The sales assistants, young, impeccably dressed, and dripping with an air of superiority, barely glanced her way. She greeted them with her signature warmth, but her kindness was met with indifference. "Hello, I'm looking for a gown," Michelle began, her tone polite but firm. "Something elegant, timeless, and perfect for a young woman's first gala." One assistant glanced up from her phone, her eyes scanning Michelle from head to toe. There was a brief moment of hesitation before she replied, "Our pieces are quite exclusive and pricey. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Michelle's smile faltered slightly, but she maintained her composure. Years of public service had taught her to rise above moments like this. "Yes, I'm sure," she replied calmly, her gaze meeting the assistant's with quiet strength. The assistant exchanged a glance with her colleague, and the unspoken judgment in their eyes was unmistakable. Michelle had encountered moments like this before, where people judged her not by her accomplishments or character, but by their assumptions. Still, she pressed on. "I'd like to see some options," Michelle added, her tone unyielding yet gracious. The assistant sighed and gestured half-heartedly toward a corner of the store where a few gowns were displayed. As Michelle walked over, she overheard a whisper between the assistants. "She's probably just browsing. Doubt she'll buy anything," one muttered, followed by a stifled laugh. Michelle's heart sank momentarily, not for herself, but for what such behavior represented. It was a reminder that even in spaces of luxury and privilege, respect was often conditional. Still, she focused on her goal, examining the dresses with care. She'd faced far greater challenges in life than the judgment of a sales assistant. Little did they know, their dismissive behavior was about to set off a chain of events that would leave everyone in the boutique, and beyond, utterly stunned. As Michelle moved through the racks of gowns, the boutique's atmosphere grew increasingly cold. She felt the weight of their eyes on her, sharp and dismissive, but she refused to let it deter her. She picked up a soft lavender dress, a flowing masterpiece of silk, with delicate beading along the neckline. It was exactly the type of dress she had envisioned for the young girl she'd mentored. Sophisticated, yet youthful. Elegant without being ostentatious. She held the gown up against her frame, imagining how the young woman would look in it. Michelle's thoughts drifted to the girl's journey, a young, bright student who had come from a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but had fought tirelessly for her dreams. The acceptance into the prestigious college was just the beginning. The gala, where she would shine in front of the city's elite, would be her moment to show the world her potential. Michelle wanted to be there for that, to help her feel like she belonged in those high-powered spaces. But as she stood there, lost in her thoughts, the assistant's voice cut through the air again. "Are you sure that dress is in your price range?" she asked, her tone laced with skepticism. Michelle blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She wasn't used to being questioned like this, especially not in a place where the wealthy spent their money without a second thought. But she didn't let it show. She looked at the assistant, her eyes unwavering. "I'm not concerned with the price," Michelle replied calmly, the warmth in her voice still present but with an edge of authority. "I just want to make sure the girl feels special." The assistant, clearly uncomfortable now, nodded quickly and began to turn away. But Michelle wasn't finished. She knew she needed to make her presence felt. "I've worked my whole life for this moment," she added, her voice steady. "Not just for me, but for people like her, people who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. For a brief moment, the assistant seemed to soften, but then, just as quickly, the cold barrier returned. She began pulling more dresses from the rack, showing Michelle options with an air of forced enthusiasm. As the assistant continued, Michelle's mind wandered again. She recalled the time when she had first entered spaces like this, long before the White House, when she was just another young woman from the south side of Chicago. She knew all too well what it felt like to be underestimated, to have people dismiss you based on nothing more than the color of your skin or the size of your bank account. But those experiences had shaped her. They had made her stronger, more determined, and far more resilient. She had learned to rise above the opinions of others, knowing that the true measure of success wasn't found in the opinions of people like this assistant, but in how she treated those around her. Michelle paused for a moment, contemplating her next move. She could feel the weight of their judgment growing heavier with each passing second, but she wasn't about to let that stop her. This was about more than a dress. It was about showing that no matter how people looked at you, you still had the power to claim your space. She turned back to the assistant, her decision made. "I'll take the lavender one," she said with finality. "But I also want to know the story behind it. Every piece here has a story, right?" The assistant hesitated. Her eyes flicked nervously to her colleague, who had been watching the exchange from across the room. I don't think you'd be interested in that," she said, her voice quiet now, almost apologetic. Michelle, sensing the shift, smiled gently. "You'd be surprised." With a sigh, the assistant reluctantly began to explain the origins of the gown, tracing its creation from designer to fabric, highlighting the care and artistry involved in crafting each piece. It was clear she was doing so only out of obligation, but Michelle listened attentively, nodding and asking questions when needed. Slowly, the tension in the air seemed to dissipate as the assistant began to warm up to her, perhaps realizing that Michelle was not just another celebrity trying to make a statement, but someone who appreciated the artistry in even the simplest of things. As Michelle continued to examine the gown, the boutique's atmosphere shifted, but it wasn't just the staff that had changed. In the back of the store, a young woman had been quietly watching the interaction from behind a rack of clothes. She was in her 20s, dressed simply in jeans and a sweatshirt, a stark contrast to the designer-clad staff around her. Her name was Rachel, and she had been working as an intern at the boutique for the past few months, hoping to break into the world of fashion. Rachel had been following Michelle's career for years, admiring her advocacy for women, her focus on education, and her unwavering commitment to making a difference. She had heard stories of how Michelle used her platform to uplift others, especially young women of color, but seeing her in person, handling the situation with such grace and dignity in the face of judgment, left Rachel in awe. As the assistant continued to wrap up the sale, Rachel couldn't help but step forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. She had to say something. It wasn't every day that a woman like Michelle Obama walked into their boutique, especially not under such circumstances. She cleared her throat, stepping into the conversation. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Rachel said, her voice nervous, "but I just wanted to say that I think what you're doing is amazing. Helping a young woman, especially someone who may not have the same opportunities, it's inspiring." Michelle turned toward her, a soft smile crossing her face. "Thank you, Rachel," she said warmly. "We all have the ability to make a difference no matter where we start, but it's the people we help along the way who truly make us who we are." Rachel's heart swelled with admiration, but she also felt a pang of discomfort. She knew she was just an intern, someone who had barely started her career, and here was Michelle Obama, a woman who had done it all. Still, Michelle's kindness made her feel seen, as if she mattered, as if the small acts she performed every day at the boutique, even if they went unnoticed, had a purpose. The assistant, who had been listening to the conversation, finally spoke up again, her voice less clipped this time. "It's all wrapped up," she said, handing Michelle the dress. "Will that be all for you today?" Michelle nodded, glancing over at Rachel one last time. "Yes, thank you. You've been wonderful." With that, Michelle paid for the gown, adding a generous tip for the staff, including Rachel, who seemed genuinely grateful for the kind gesture. As she left the boutique, the door chimed again, but this time it felt different. The atmosphere had shifted, no longer cold or judgmental, but filled with something much warmer, respect. Little did the boutique staff know, Michelle's act of kindness would not go unnoticed. The story of the woman who had been underestimated by the staff, only to turn around and leave them in awe, would soon spread across social media. Within hours, Rachel had shared the encounter on her Instagram, tagging Michelle and describing the way she had handled the entire situation with poise and grace. Soon, the post went viral, and the story of Michelle's visit to the boutique spread like wildfire. People from all over praised her for her humility, her dedication to helping others, and her unwavering strength in the face of judgment. But Michelle's actions went far beyond just the viral post. The impact she had made on Rachel was profound, inspiring her to continue pursuing her dreams in the fashion world, knowing that her kindness, no matter how small, could make a difference in someone else's life. As for the boutique staff, they learned a valuable lesson that day. The next time someone walked into their store, they would remember Michelle Obama and the grace she had shown in the face of judgment. They would remember that true wealth wasn't about the price tag on a dress, but the dignity and respect we give to one another, no matter who they are or where they come from. And as for Michelle, she left that day knowing she had done what she had set out to do, not just for the young woman she was shopping for, but for every person who had been made to feel small, overlooked, or underestimated. In the end, it was about more than the dress. It was about showing the world that kindness, respect, and dignity were worth far more than any designer label. Michelle Obama's simple yet powerful act of kindness in a high-end boutique became more than just a shopping trip. It was a reminder that respect and dignity should never be dictated by appearances or assumptions. Her grace and humility turned a moment of judgment into a lesson of empowerment, not just for the young woman she was mentoring, but for everyone who witnessed her actions. The viral story that followed was a testament to the impact one person can have when they choose to lead with kindness and respect, showing us all that true strength lies in how we treat one another. If Michelle's story inspired you, remember that we all have the power to make a difference. Whether it's a small act of kindness or standing up for someone who is being overlooked, your actions can create ripples of change. Share this story, spread the message, and let's continue to uplift one another, no matter where we come from. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Your support helps us bring more stories that touch the heart and inspire action. Thank you for watching.